Shaking up one of the largest industries in the world, the gaming industry, we introduced Jack from Tempest AI.
I mean, gaming industry is literally the largest entertainment industry in the world.
Super like funny story how I actually got into gaming.
Yep.
And I used to just download these Unity tutorials. So I noticed that there wasn't a lot of game design content out there. You know, like how do you actually design a successful video game? How do you make a engaging experience to users? Well, Tempest is a consumer platform. We are essentially Lovable for games. We let like generative AI like understand what is happening within this game and actively make, content to, keep the game going. We actually ended up like building our own like game framework, our own like game engine, if you will. It is really, really hard to generate 3D assets dynamically with AI.
How do you see the impact that AI is having on creativity in that space?
I think it's absolutely going to amplify creativity by lowering the barriers for the actual like building process. There will be a working personalized game for every single person.
Hearing your successes and what that evaluation will look like for your business. Tell me about that process.
Process was very, very long. What I did was consistently ship and let people know what I was working on and keeping, all these people like updated. So then when we went to raise, we had
Best piece of advice that you've received?
You truly only lose when you quit. So you actively like seek out like feedback and you just, break the universe by just doing this one single thing. Like, it's inevitable you will get somewhere. It might not be the outcome that you envisioned like at the start, but it has a very, very interesting sort of like compound effect. Don't complicate things when you haven't gone from 0 to 1.
Let's get into things.
Let's get into it.
Excited. Jack, thanks for being here with us, mate. It's muchly appreciated.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're going through quite a lot right now. It's very, very exciting, but we'll jump into that very shortly. Obviously, you have Tempest AI, one of your baby, your beauty. You started just over a year ago now, maybe 2?
Ooh, like a year and a half.
Year and a half
We're
now?
getting to 2 years now.
Wow, that's so exciting. So right at the precipice of like the AI boom. But you've had an interesting journey getting to that point of starting your business. Like not the traditional route, kind of similar to myself actually. I know you're rural. Yeah.
I am very rural.
That was raised up on the farms or?
Yep. So I grew up near like a small town called Carcoar, which is quite far out west.
Yep.
Sort of like around Orange, and grew up on like a relatively isolated cattle farm.
Oh, very cool. How big's the farm?
So farm was like 1,000 acres.
Wow.
Quite a few cattle there. Always, lots of work to be done.
It's like, it's not really, you can't really comprehend how big 1,000 acres is. So my folks farmers as well, but they've downsized into a home-sized farm. So my parents have like a cattle farm, 100 acres. It's comfy, it's cozy. It's got like nice countryside views. You go to the relaxer, not to work hard. I'm sure life would be very different on a 1,000-acre cattle farm. How many cattle do you guys have?
God, so we had probably 3 to 400.
Oh.
So like quite a bit of work. I think cattle are a little less work than say, like sheep or
really
crops, like relatively light touch. It's almost
just move them from
moving, tagging, all that like fun stuff. Like usually, every like couple of weekends, we'll be, working out on the farm for like 48 hours.
That's so good. And that from there is when your kind of passion for gaming grew, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like super like funny story how I actually got into gaming.
Yeah,
so,
tell me.
See, I was growing up on this cattle farm. Now there wasn't like a lot to do out there. So obviously, we had the farm. It was like really, really beautiful.
Clearly, and looking after cows is pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. But I definitely like fell into like a bit of rabbit hole when I was younger. Yeah. So sort of I was about like 8, 9 years old when I remember I got my first Nintendo DS. We had like Pokemon, Mario, Sonic, and I sort of like immediately fell in love with gaming when I was like quite young.
Yep.
Now growing up like on the farm, parents were like quite strict about that. So I usually
don't play enough.
They're like do not play. So you have 2 hours a day and then it's done.
Oh, that's still pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, or you just get it on the weekends.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours on the weekend only. I hear a lot of families doing. That's
could have been like a little worse.
Yeah.
But like absolutely loved gaming. I was like super frustrated that my parents were taking everything. So almost like in a fit of rebellion, I decided to teach myself how to make games for myself when I was like around 14 years old. Growing up on the farm, it was like basically in the middle of nowhere, didn't have like a ton of Wi-Fi. So I remember when I started out making games, I used to go to school, I had like a little like school iPad, and I used to just download these Unity tutorials. YouTube tutorials. Shout out to Jimmy Vegas. Excellent, game educator, got me started when I was like super young.
Nice.
But used to, download all this content, come back to the farm and just spend my nights trying to like make these games that I really wanted to be able to play.
And you would start like to almost draw, like you would draw around and tell like the stories as well, like pages, hundreds of pages of actual designing and shaping your own content.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I like originally started when I was like 14, I was just hacking around with our Unity. Didn't really have like a lot of plans when I was like starting out, just wanted to make these, playable experiences and, share them with my friends. But realized after I made like a couple of games that game design is this like massive component of our games, and design is like super, super important to create like a good experience for users. So that led me into like getting into game design. So sort of when I was like 15, 16, I'd spent a couple of years just playing around, making these like small projects for myself. Then I decided to get into game design, and I started consulting when I was around like 16, working with indie studios and also making content online around game design.
But you were 16 when this was happening?
I was 16, yes. So a platform actually called Skillshare. So I noticed that there wasn't a lot of game design content out there. There wasn't a lot of information as to, like how do you actually design like a successful video game? How do you make a engaging experience to users? So I got into game design, read absolutely everything I could, and started making content online to almost help myself learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember back in my university, or no, my high school days, you were saying you had iPads and stuff in school. We definitely didn't have that stuff for us. It was, I think I had a computer in year 11 and 12. I think they just were one of the first schools to introduce laptops. But prior to that, it was, the calculators with like smart stuff on it. And we used to make choose your own adventure style games on there. Like if you do this good, it's kind of like the old school Pokemon, but obviously on a calculator format. So that was like the extent of us doing game creation in our entire. So we'll be sitting in math classes sometimes, and everyone would be like, "Oh, did you figure out how to do that if statement and make this like a really complex algorithm?" And you'd be just sitting there going, "Oh, that's so cool," having these fake battles with each other in these little calculator environments. But did you end up doing? How did that take you to the next step of?
Yeah. So basically, I was like jamming on a couple of indie projects. With like a couple of clients, making all of this content online. And then I graduated high school, and I decided that I need to get like a little bit serious. So gaming, like truly like in Australia, like isn't really a compelling career for a very young person. It is super, super hard to get a job, especially like internship if you're just starting out.
Why is that? Because I mean, gaming industry is literally the largest entertainment industry in the world. Like multiples of billions of dollars, sizable than even like, Hollywood and those other industries globally, of course. Why, given the sheer scale of it, is it such a difficult thing, particularly in Australia, to get into?
With gaming, it is a little bit of a winner takes all market. The process of building games is very, very risky. So every single video game that you play, you see around, has generally been in development for at least like 4 to 5 years.
AAA titles anyway.
AAA titles, but also some of the indie projects. A lot of work really goes into like making games, and there's like a lot of uncertainty, especially during those like really, really early days. So a studio may, like start up, they'll raise like a little bit of money from like a publisher, and they will create their, their first game that really dictates, the future of that studio, whether they're going to survive or unfortunately they're going to have to fold. So like a lot of those problems with gaming essentially means that like one, if you want to work for like one of these smaller studios, there is a lot of uncertainty. there's a lot of people who want to break into the games industry. It's super competitive, especially if you're, going for some sort of like junior position. So for like a random 18-year-old with no real world experience who wants to get into the industry, it's really hard.
When we walked in, this is South by Southwest, they have obviously the gaming area, where all these people coming out of university, TAFE courses and all their own independent stuff. There's heaps, hundreds of these people developing games. So we're saying that probably like only a small percentage of them are going to end up succeeding.
Absolutely small percentage.
That's crazy. So then how were you able to break in?
I actually wasn't. So I tried for a while to get quite a few internships. So my last year at high school, and then I graduated, I took like a year off trying to figure out like what I really wanted to do.
And you did a lot of job hopping at that time.
I did a lot of job hopping. So I was working as like a lifeguard. I was a bartender.
Very cool.
Did like quite a bit of traveling.
Not on the farm?
I was on the farm for a little bit and was traveling around quite a bit, lifeguarding at like a lot of pools, like really far out west.
Yeah, nice. Is that, so you're exploring what you want to do. Gaming is still in the back of your mind.
Yep.
You jumped into university?
Jumped into university and I decided to get into finance.
In finance?
Finance, yes.
Didn't even like go into game development or coding or...
So I, decided like against studying game design at university because it was a very risky sort of like career path.
Yeah.
A lot of family pressure to get my foot in the door like somewhere and just set myself up for life. So found myself at University of Sydney studying finance. But lucky I had like sort of the foresight to also do like a major in computer science.
Awesome. And that then stepped you into essentially what you're doing now. Talk about that decision making.
Yeah.
Because you're going through something where you're, like you mentioned, like you're taking a course purely out of de-risking your life choices. You still got this itch in the back of your head. Like, I love the gaming industry. I mean, I'm myself obsessed with the gaming industry, but much more from a player perspective rather than any kind of development. I've got pages of books and stuff I've written, but that'll never come to light. How did you build up the courage to go from that step into, I guess, essentially Tempest now?
That itch like absolutely grew while I was at university. I think like I was at university for 2 years. First year, like, okay. But it's sort of like after that year, I was like very like deeply unsatisfied with what I was doing. I thought finance was like super boring. The career prospects like really did not excite me.
Mark's sitting at the table just going, finance is great. What are you talking about? Don't talk to me, guys.
It's good for some people, of course, but definitely not for someone like me.
My wife's an accountant, so no, she won't see this. We can talk bad about the finance people.
People like this, like itch like continued to like grow. I knew that, finance is like definitely something I probably could not see myself doing for like a little while. So what I was like in the back of my mind, I'm sort of like, this is really not what I want my life trajectory to look like.
Yeah.
So I began to sort of like revisit some of the old projects that I made as a kid. And coincidentally, around the same time, GPT-3 was first released by OpenAI. It was like publicly available as an API.
Yep.
And I remember I was at university, it was the semester break, and I started just playing around with LLMs within games. Basically going to some of my old projects and getting AI-powered NPCs working. And I thought it was like the coolest thing.
That is pretty cool though.
In the world.
That is pretty cool.
It was very like fun. And so like from that, I began to like conceptualize, what Tempest AI could be. And how I envisioned it like at the start was, essentially creating this AI native gaming platform. Basically making a platform where people are able to create these never-ending RPG experiences with LLMs in the driving seat of these games, actively creating this world around players as they were playing the game. So that was the grand vision during the really early days. What it looked like in reality was essentially a marketplace of these custom GPTs that users could role play with.
I've got this vision of a meme of that, what I'm saying it is about what it really is.
That was definitely
through holes or through
yeah, super early days.
I want to I definitely want to jump into that in a moment. It's like thinking about that decision process that you went through. You obviously dropped out of university to go chase your dream. I did a very similar thing. What advice do you have for people who are going through that journey, where they're young, they're at university, they're at that precipice of something that is itching and scratching them, but there's obviously risk, there's life, and then obviously there's passion. What advice do you have for people going through that kind of experience?
Absolutely. So when I decided to drop out of university, I said to myself that I was going to give it 1 year. I was going to work super, super hard for like 1 year to try and almost like force this like new career path, like really pursue my passion. During that year, I dropped out of university and I started up like a full-time job. So I was actually doing pest control and I was doing industrial cleaning overnight and working on Tempest during the day. So if anyone's like thinking about dropping out of university, like my advice really is just pick something that is obviously going to keep the lights on. Pick up like some shitty job and just give yourself some like time frame and go absolutely all out in that thing and focus like very, very heavily. When I like dropped out of university, I had like one objective, and that objective was Tempest. I essentially organized my entire life during that 1 year to like really revolve around Tempest AI. I was working weekends, working overnights to keep myself going to build Tempest. And that like really is like my advice. Just focus super, super heavily for, like a year. Cut out like a lot in your life. So you're just, focusing on
the room.
Yeah, one thing. Make sure you don't go hungry. Make sure you have a place to stay and just give yourself a year and seize it.
Love it. There's sort of like 3 categories I always fit. Well, that I see our requirements around entrepreneurs, as I've been speaking with a lot of people like yourself, both young and old, for the lack of a better word there. And the 3 categories tend to sit around it's knowledge, it's ego, and then the last one is, I guess, like experience. And they come into knowledge being, I know the space, I am very passionate about the space, and I will do everything to make sure I have all the things around to be able to make the decisions and take the right paths, both from process, both from industry, market, etc. There's the experience, which is like the things you get from when you're listening and you're taking advice from people, knowing the pathways to go, the things that you gather, usually over time, but obviously being young, a lot of people have to compact that experience really well and have advice from others to get guided through that. And then the last one is ego, which is like the ability to, no matter what someone says to you, to be like, nah, I'm going to keep going with this. I believe in what I'm doing. Or if someone says that's that's not going to work. You can stand up knowing that you've got the knowledge and experience to say, no, I'm not going to. But you still listened, you still learned, you still understood, but you have that passion to be able to just be like, no, I'm going to go for it. How do you feel in those moments as you're starting Tempest? Like, do you feel like you had that?
I definitely had like quite a bit of ego. So for that year, it was sort of like, this is going to work. I'm going to make it happen. But I did like acknowledge the present realities. So I was 2 years into university. Was I like a good computer engineer? Was I some sort of prodigy? Absolutely not. There was like so much that I really didn't know. And I was like acutely aware of almost my like own inadequacies as I was like building Tempest.
That's good. And that's like kind of where the experience category comes.
Absolutely.
Knowing your flaws.
Like absolutely knowing your flaws, but also like understanding that, you're young, you have, these like superpowers, you have this like boundless energy, and you really need to get your reps in. What those reps like look like is, putting yourself out there, building, launching, and just almost taking it on the chin for all the shit that happens, when you're like a young founder, you have the passion, but you don't have that experience.
Yeah.
And you just need to, weather the storm and just like truly keep going and just learn and get those like feedback cycles super, super short.
I love that. It's like spoken professionally, spoken with experience is really cool. And you had some support going through this journey towards the end of it as well. This is where, because you ended up partnering with Build Club.
I did, yes.
With Liao, who we actually spoke with on the show last week. That episode is probably, hopefully will be out by the time this one comes out. Talk to me about that experience that you had, because that would have been also, especially Annie, who's got a lot of experience with VCs and a lot of experience building companies or working with others who have built companies up. How was that sort of critical to the journey that you guys were going on?
Yeah, like super important. So when I like started building Tempest, I didn't know anything. I was, a bit of like a moron trying to build this like super ambitious thing. But then I met Annie, absolutely amazing founder. And I came into the fold for our Build Club back when it had just started out, and it was basically co-working every single Sunday out of Annie's old office, which was Aura Ventures. So every single
Australia's first. Do you call it Australia's first hack? Hack club?
Potentially, yes. I would argue that was probably Australia's first proper hack space.
That's so good. Yeah. Which is obviously in San Fran, places like that is like that's such a massive model. But here it's just like unheard of practically.
Absolutely. I think, especially in Australia, a lot of people are almost like building in isolation. A lot of people, like start these companies and there doesn't exist like a lot of spaces for people to get together and hack together.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, Build Club was especially valuable to me during those like really early days. So I like started Tempest. I was an absolute moron. Came to like Build Club, met like Annie, met a couple of like really, really amazing founders, and they sort of like gave me a roadmap of, what is like good? What do like good founders look like? How do good founders like operate? And also like gave me this really, really powerful peer group. And it was like very
like a mentor program kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Mentoring, but also like peers.
Yeah.
Being able to like work alongside people who are going as hard as you and just seeing, their cadence, seeing like all the struggles, all like the really, really big wins, and just understanding that you like really aren't alone.
Yeah.
There's like all these other cool people who are doing something similar. And I think without having some sort of like peer group like that, it's a lot easier to get disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Working in a bubble and you're like, man, this is like super, super hard. I'm like working like absolutely like all the time. But if you're surrounded by like all these people, like at our Build Club, it's definitely gives you a lot more energy to just keep going.
I love that. It's like, it's something thing that people miss a lot. I know that COVID changed the game quite a lot, people working from home, but you can see we won't touch on the mental health side of things, but you can see that the mental pressure that it does put against people working in silo, working alone, like missing that motivation that you do get from either whether you're working in a business, whether you're working with a whole group of people on something, or just being in a space, as you're saying, with that, like everyone's working hard, so I got to work hard too kind of mentality, not forcing you to. It's like you have to have your own motivation, but there's still that aspiration, that inspiration driven by those around you. That's really cool that Build Club was able to provide that for you. Let's go into Tempest, because this is super exciting for me. I know as we said, the gaming industry, multi-billion dollars, one of the largest entertainment industries in the world. AI has changed the game across every single industry in the world, but just focusing in on the coding side of things, like it's changed how developers interact with products, applications, and services. Right now, they're estimating that probably the gaming AI industry is probably $2 billion right now, 1.5 I think it was, and over up to 2029, they're estimating it's probably going to hit like the tens plus of billions of dollars as AI obviously becomes more capable across the field. You've slotted yourself into that space with the generative gaming environments with Tempest. Now I mentioned I was looking at it before, and we had this chat earlier. So Tempest, what it was able to do was providing that brain layer over the top of generating content, right? Where context windows is the main issue when it comes to LLMs. It's remembering things that it's done. And you were trying to solve that problem given the stuff that you had already interacted with when developing games. Tell me about that aspect of things, because I know it's changed since then. We'll touch on that in a moment, but let's talk about that initial journey that you went on.
So during the early days, we were pursuing, you know, the concept of these AI native games. These are never-ending experiences. People being able to play this game and having this game actively evolve with every single decision that they made. Now that is like super hard to do. Like, how do you, you know, keep track of, you know, all this context of this games world and build this like really dynamic system to, you know, like to obviously let like generative AI like understand what is happening within this game and actively make, you know, content to, you know, keep the game going. So that was something we tackled like during the really early days, and we tried like a bunch of different things. We tried RAG, we tried like, you know, a shit ton of you know, these context engineering sort of like techniques. We had this very specific like data schemas for these games, but we actually ended up like building our own like game framework, our own like game engine, if you will, to specifically, you know, give these LLMs like the best context as to what was happening within the game. So when we, you know, we had like an infinite RPG, if we need to like make characters using this like specific context system, we could see, you know, what characters are already in the game, what's the general trajectory of the story, instantiate these characters within the game's world, and update the entire context. And we did that, by building our own game engine using a, like almost this esoteric architecture called ECS. And like worked out for quite a while.
It was, okay, so I love my RPG games, I guess, especially the story-driven ones. Not so much into the open, like the online side of things, although that's when I play with my gamer friends, but like the things I always draw inspiration from when I'm doing my creativity and exploring, having fun and filling in my book, as I mentioned before, which will never come to light. Things like the Mass Effects and like one of my favorite gaming stories, like from 1 to 3. The narrative, the open world, the exploration, the characters, the you know, decision making that you make that drives those. How do you see Tempest position in terms of people's ability to play in worlds? Not too dissimilar to that, but obviously on the fly, generating content, generating those live environments.
So like as an industry, we have like a little while. We have laid also the framework in order to be able to one day create those types of experiences. Quite a few like problems with it at the moment that people are actively trying to figure out, something that we're trying to figure out as well. Context engineering, like a massive part of that. Also the you know, the technology that allows you to like actively, you know, build the game as people are interacting with that. Still has like a little while to go. But we have sort of like solved that by basically making web games, which is a lot easier to recompile and extend as opposed to using a traditional game engine where you have to compile all of this code.
Traditional being like the Unreals and
like the Unreal, the Unity
games.
There is also asset generation as well. Has a little bit further to go. It is really hard to generate 3D assets dynamically with AI. Still look like a little bit bad, but like as for like AI's like general role, like right now, definitely we're starting to see like a lot of action within the game development process.
How is if I've seen a lot, so you've said Google, obviously, as you know, you can go into Google Studio and you can generate little games within that experience. I've seen even like the likes of Activision and or EA who have been able to do in-world generating, where you may have a fixed environment, but you start generating assets utilizing AI that you can interact with. How do you place yourself amongst the other players that are coming out with all these gaming experiences, and where are you guys positioning yourself in that role?
So Tempest is a consumer platform. What you can think of us right now is we are essentially Lovable for games. So Tempest, first and foremost, is for just general consumers, people who have not made any type of experience before.
Nice.
How we like truly set ourselves apart is by, a couple of different things. Like one, we have a super easy like UX where you can essentially prompt anything and it will, modify the game for you. We also have a
Put some pictures on and stuff. Is this generating, and make sure we've got all the links as well.
Put them all up there. Yeah. We also have a super interesting timeline feature. So Lovable for games is a relatively new direction. We were tackling, these like endless RPGs for quite a while, which were largely text-based experiences. Sort of about like 3 months ago, we pivoted to become a more generalized game creation platform. We discovered a lot of stuff, especially surrounding how like consumers were using our platform and so like what they were getting frustrated about.
I love that.
The number one thing with like consumers who are, using these like vibe coding platforms such as Tempest or even Lovable, the iteration cycles can be like quite slow, especially with games. Generally with Google Studio, or if you're even like using Lovable to attempt like make games, basically you add something to your game, you have to recompile the entire game and play through from the start. And we noticed that this was like this really persistent problem. As soon as your game, maybe hit like 2 minutes of gameplay, every single change you had to make, you would play through 2 minutes and then Tetra ranges. Pain in the ass. So
made this 1 hour game and I've played 2,000 hours.
2,000 hours. Yeah. So we actually built this timeline feature. So we used the game engine that we had built previously for the generative AI games, and we sort of retrofitted it to this coding agent. So both in terms of like the context with the coding agent being able to understand how this game sort of like fits together, what are all the different like moving pieces. But the engine also allowed us to almost create this like timeline feature where users can scrub through their game almost like a YouTube video. So basically as you're playing, it automatically creates like checkpoints and you can teleport to any point in the game that you want, make some changes, and then just keep playing as if nothing happened at all.
That's such a good feature. So that'll speed up everyone's development time. You touched on something very interesting there, which is close to home in terms of how I work with products, and particularly in my specialty around product and UX is the fact that you were listening to your customers while you were doing that. What were you doing in that stage? What allowed you to listen to the customers, and how were you taking on that advice and that feedback from them?
So always like advocate for, obviously you talking to your customers like absolute lot, preferably every single day.
It's something you do not hear enough in business, and like the fact that you learned that at such a young point in your life, and it's music to my ear.
Like what I was like always doing is essentially building games with users. So you can have like a lot of analytics. You can use post-hold. You can collect like all of this data as to like what users are doing on your platform. But at the end of the day, it really does not beat like literally sitting beside your user and then watching them use your platform. Which is what we were doing, what we've always been doing essentially throughout like Tempest life. Sitting alongside users, helping them make games, giving them free tokens, and iterating with them. So you discover some like really, really surprising insights that you probably wouldn't have discovered otherwise.
I love that. And it is such a true statement, is the seeing someone do something, whether it is you're sitting next to, whether you may have something sitting over the top that's exploring where they're doing the movements or where they're looking and how they're experiencing stuff. It just doesn't compare to the data that you gather. Like, it is such an amazing way to pick out insights that you would never have experienced. Analytics obviously gives the opportunity to see, where's the mouse going, where they're clicking, but it doesn't get the context of how they guided themselves up to that position.
often you can, marry the two. So,
Exactly.
you have like all this data as to like how people are interacting with your products, but
Or what they're interacting with.
what they're interacting with. But if you're sitting alongside your users, you almost discover like the why, like why are they behaving this way? And often, it backs up all the data you have, and you can make some, very like well-informed decisions.
It's beautiful. That's a nice one, man. So I want to touch on something. So this is one of the big conversations we have with a lot of people building stuff around the AI space, whether it's image generation, whether it's the LLM, and obviously gaming being a big one and such a huge industry in itself is the creativity side of things, right? So we have like thousands of people building games in Australia, and then, hundreds of thousands of people building games overseas. And then you've got all the big players, the Epics, the EA, the Microsofts in the world. And the big thing you keep hearing around the pressures of AI, particularly when it comes to generator, is the creative side of things. Like, what's it going to do to the industry if now people are able to create games themselves on the fly versus hearing the stories that, the specialists have been creating for so long? How do you see the impact that AI is having on creativity in that space?
I think it's absolutely going to amplify creativity by lowering the barriers for the actual like building process. You're going to allow for like a lot more games to be built, and you're also going to allow for almost like empower individual creators to take more risks with the games that they build.
Love it.
So obviously, games, they require like a lot of resources to actually build. And often a lot of sort of like these diverse creative ideas often get stamped down because it is just way too risky to, take a lot of money and spend 4 years to like build out this game. But by lowering the barrier to entry, you will actually empower like a lot more people to create very diverse experiences. And you'll see like a lot more variety of games with some super interesting innovations.
Unless Nintendo decides to try and put caps on all of that stuff, as we were seeing. God. I love that. It's just the idea that it's opening up the doors for people who previously didn't have the opportunity to be creative in this space.
Absolutely.
And the other part of the argument I hear is that it's not necessarily going to crush the other aspects of other people. It's going to enable them to take also their craft a little bit more seriously. You can see a lot of the times there's a lot of games that are popping up, especially in the AAA space, where it's just a little bit fluff. Like, clearly haven't put any effort into this.
So a lot of our recycled.
Recycles, gorgeous. And obviously what it's going to do is force them to actually go, okay, how do we actually be more innovative and more creative? Because I mean, even at the early stages, AI doesn't have the ability to be properly creative. It does what it's told. It's based on learnings from everything that we've done in our life. And so these creatives are going to have to come through and trying to think differently. How do we do something differently that's more fun and more entertaining, tell a story in a different way? And it will enforce that kind of nature as well. And that's not going to go away
Absolutely.
as a positive change. How do you see the future of this space then evolving as your business gets more advanced, as the technology itself as AI gets more advanced? How do you see that evolution over the next 5 years?
Yeah. So there's like quite a few things that I'm seeing within gaming at the moment. I'd say like the future of gaming is truly going to involve these really personalized experiences. Since the barrier of entry for creating these experiences is getting lower and lower by the day, we're naturally going to see like a lot more games that are being built that are built for one singular user almost. We're going to see like a lot more diverse experiences, and like in the future there will be a platform where users can play any experience that they want. They just truly have to conceptualize it, and within a couple of minutes there will be a working personalized game for every single person.
That's super interesting. So it's like tailored to your unique desires, your experience, the things that you love. That'll be the game to generate. That's very, very cool. Coming to the precipice of the Tempest more of a congratulations, because I don't know when it's going to happen, but you guys are going through a raise right now, looking to close the next couple of weeks. Really exciting to hear and what you've been able to achieve on that. We won't talk any numbers because it's not official yet, but it's like super, super awesome. What I'd love to hear is how that journey of you going through that process to step up to be able to get the raise. How have you been able to influence people to be able to invest in yourself? Because that is also a very hard journey, particularly in Australia. And hearing your successes and what that evaluation will look like for your business, it's awesome. Like, I'm super excited. You should be so proud of yourself. So tell me about that process that you went through.
Process was very, very long.
Yeah, could imagine.
Now, so I've been working at Tempest for, almost 2 years. And one thing that I was very, very conscious of, I've like always been very conscious about, is building in public. So especially, during the early days, like I was never, the best programmer, but what I did was consistently ship and let people know sort of like what I was working on, and keeping, all these people like updated as to, our progress, like what we're working on, what our like current traction is like.
What did you use to do that? What was the channels?
Email, a lot of in-person meetings. So sort of like the throughout the raise process, basically we met like a lot of people throughout our sort of like journey. We kept them informed, and basically, it was like keeping people into the loop, just showing them that, I was like super serious about Tempest, and I was just going to run through every single wall that I encountered. And I literally did that by just not quitting for like 2 years, and just very publicly and very proudly.
It's the ego, man. It's great. I love it. It's positive ego, not bad ego. It's good ego. Yeah.
But yeah, just like looping in like a bunch of people and just keeping them informed of the journey.
Nice.
And just being very conscious about that, doing that for like a long time, almost, proving to the world that, Tempest is something that is absolutely inevitable. I'm the right person to do that, and I truly like will not quit. So then when we went to raise, we had, all of these people who were following along for the journey, and they got to see our trajectory. And I think that's like super important, especially for younger founders who may not have, they may not have the skills and the experience from absolutely day one. But by, talking to absolutely everyone that you can, posting very, very publicly, building in public and keeping people up to date with the journey, you can convince like a lot of people that, to follow along with you, and potentially one day give you a little bit of money.
So good. So essentially you'd built the following, you were continually telling the story, making sure that everyone in your network was updated on that story. So when it came time to present, you had proof. And an open proof as well. Like it wasn't like here's a document that you've never seen before. It was like, here's the last 1 year of social emails, people, interviews, etc.
But also the almost like the personal like sort of development, trying to like keeping people up to date and like letting them know that, your skills like as a founder are like improving. So if people can see that, rapid like personal trajectory, that is like a pretty compelling reason to, like if you go to raise, to obviously back you as a founder.
100%. Because you hear a lot of those stories. I mean, you've watched TV shows sometimes when you watch like Shark Tank, but half the time they're not investing in the products, they're investing in the person.
Absolutely.
And it's particularly in Australia, that's very true. It's about the person, or the trust they have that you're going to take it all the way, which is fantastic. Mate, this is, excuse me, let me start again. Mate, this has been an awesome conversation. I always like to round things out with a bit of a rapid fire round of a couple of questions. What's been the one thing that you wish you knew before starting Tempest AI?
Don't complicate things when you haven't gone from 0 to 1.
Elaborate.
So during the early days of Tempest, we built this really complicated sort of like tech. We went absolutely overboard. And generally, if I could go back sort of like 1.5 years, 2 years, I would scream at myself to just cut every single unnecessary feature until you have like a really narrow product slice that users really enjoy.
It's such a hard thing to convince at that early stage,
Yeah,
but it is such good advice.
It's hard.
The biggest mistake that you've made.
Ooh. Biggest mistake that I've made.
Or most unexpected challenge.
Most unexpected challenge. Biggest mistake I made was during those like really, really early days. I like refused to almost like take money / go and like fundraise. I always just told myself that, you know, you're not ready. Do not like approach any angels. And if I could like go back, I would tell myself during those early days when I had like some working product and I had some users, go and get like some sort of like angel check. A lot of pain and misery could have been sort of, you know, like avoided by doing that.
Was that an equity-based thing though? Like, is that holding on to as much as you can before it's absolutely needed? Because that, while that probably was hard, probably had benefits for you later on. Because then
probably had benefits, yes.
Less baggage when you go into that first raise.
I honestly think it was just like a confidence thing. Actually, during those early days, it was just almost, you know, telling myself that you're not ready. You're not ready for this.
And you think about the things that we talked about, it's building up that experience and that trust and that ego to be able to make the leap. I really like it. Best piece of advice that you've received?
You truly only lose when you quit.
Love it.
Like, you know, we live for a very, very like long time, and you can work really, really hard at something for like a very long time, especially when you're like quite a bit younger and you have absolutely no obligations.
Yes.
And the only way that you can truly like lose is like if you like give up at something. If you stick at one thing for a very long time, you obviously actively like seek out like feedback, and you just, you know, try and almost, you know, break the universe by just doing this one single thing. Like, it's inevitable you will get somewhere. It might not be the outcome that you envisioned like at the start, but it has a very, very interesting sort of like compound effect. If you just keep working at this one thing for a long time, that's like truly how you know, will make it at something.
Mic drop. That's fantastic. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on our show. Thank you for sharing your story. So excited for you and the space that you've moved into, and the journey that you're still going on, and hopefully will for a very long time. Everyone, big shout out to Jack. Like,
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Like and subscribe, and check out Tempest AI.
Thank you, man. Awesome.
Awesome.